Go live.
Hello, this is week 5 of the 13-week fiscal program for American Prisoners of War. You have myself, Chief Biko. Today we have Chief Alligator as well as Chief Blackcoat. And here, as always, we focus more so on the first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. Today we'll have Chief Alligator start with the 12 steps for American Prisoners of War. Now I'll share my screen with that document. All right.
Okay, American Prisoners of War, 13-week practical program of action for each American prisoner of wars. Step 1, learn about the estate or estates your family originated from. Step 2, who established that estate. Step 3, what tribe and confederacy had jurisdiction over that area prior to the European. Step 4, ask all nonprofit organizations you attend, what's your position on reparations? Step 5, they either support it or they don't. No support, no money. However, if they support it, then children and adults need weekly classes free of charge about steps 1, 2, and 3. In addition, field trips to APOW landmarks in that city, county, and state are needed. Step 6, don't support European holidays for the remainder of the 13-week time frame. Step 7, avoid spending money with any small business that doesn't hire your people, gas stations, nail salons, subways, corner stores, etc. Step 8, all businesses need operating cash, spend money with American businesses. Step 9, all other groups rely on our energy and operating cash to survive. Set the trends of making other groups follow our lead and support our clubs, services, products, and entertainment. Step 10, the US government is bankrupt. The Federal Reserve prints money, i.e. quantitative easing. It also burns money, i.e. quantitative tightening. The US dollar hasn't been backed by gold since Richard Nixon in 1971, the Gold Standard Act. The government operates off the full faith of its citizens to pay debt and taxes. American prisoners of war no longer have faith in the US government. This is why financial support will be altered, stopped, and redirected. Step 11, teach your kids 1 hour a day about their history on this land. Have them learn about an American inventor. Have them know about our heroes. They should know the European that conquered the estate you live in. They should know the nation of people prior to European invasion militarily and culturally. 12, practicing these steps will educate us on the land we're claiming America and attaches us to the history and laws of the US government. Every estate American prisoners of war live in should have steps 1, 2, and 3 advertised via social media, radio, and newspaper. This in 13 weeks, 1 fiscal quarter, will bring us together for our common cause.
Thank you, Chief Alligator. Next, we will have Chief Blackcoat with the quote for this week.
All right, this week's quote, we're going to go with quote number 4. If the Negro can abandon the idea of leadership and instead stimulate a large number of the race to take up definite tasks and sacrifice their time and energy in doing these things efficiently, the race might accomplish something. The race needs workers, not leaders. Such workers will solve the problems which race leaders talk about and raise money to enable them to talk more and more about it. That was my week's quote. That one stuck out to me this week. Just not everybody has to be a leader. You just got to have a lot of structure, organization. Leaders are going to talk their ways into pushing the group forward, and everybody else kind of gets the rest of it done, whatever the leaders are talking about. So I think that was a powerful quote. If you're going to be workers, you kind of work towards the group moving forward. If you're going to be leaders, lead towards the group going forward.
Like that quote. This week's inventor, we have Andrew Jackson Beard. Andrew Jackson Beard was born in 1849 in Alabama underneath military occupation, pretty much worked on a military work camp, created a lot of inventions. He actually passed away November 23rd, I believe it was 1897, if I recall correctly. But he was, pretty much known for the car coupling system, which is this picture here. And this is the man behind me, Andrew Jackson Beard. And what this is, it basically automatically attached the cars in the train. So it automatically linked them together. So I know as we continue to read the 1866 Indian Treaty, they mentioned about, railroads being built through that territory. So just keep in mind, an American was one to help link those cars together. So that's big, very big. So that is our inventor for this week. Stop sharing. And next, we will go ahead and read the legal definitions as well as the Maroon historical points. Number one for legal definitions, American is an indigenous to America. Number two, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number three, slavery, a situation in which one person had absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Four, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number five, school, any institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. And number six, education and enlightening experience. The five Maroon historical points read as follows. Number one, was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number two, providing unity and a strong defense came first. Number three, Maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number four, Maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. And number five, Maroons knew their European enemies' language, defenses, and plans. And that is the Maroon historical points. And last but not least, as always, we have to jump into the Constitution. Share my screen here. And in Article 1, Section 10, it reads as follows. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque of reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So pretty much this is in alignment with what we read in our 12 steps, number 10 exactly, that there is no money. Gold and silver has been taken out of this government. And according to this government's constitution, the only thing that would be considered as payment for debts would be, again, gold and silver. So definitely want to keep that in mind as we continue to move forward, especially in regards to any reparation talks, in regards to any resources being divvied out to our group of people. Definitely want to understand, especially underneath this system, what is actually considered money and tender payment of debts. We'll jump down into Article 6. And Article 6 pretty much tells exactly what the supreme law of the land is, which is the treaty. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. So again, this treaty is the supreme law of the land, but we are never schooled, or our highly educated or highly schooled people of our group, of our specific, group of people, never talk about treaties, even though that is again, according to this government's constitution, is the supreme law of the land. So we always like to go off of, bills and certain, rights and statutes, but never talk about or dive deep into the treaties. And it just kind of, begs the question, why is that? Especially in regards to these, highly schooled individuals that love to, talk about, this document meant this for our people, this document meant that, but it's not the supreme law of the land, which in this case would be the treaty. So definitely another question that we should be posing to these highly schooled individuals who are supposed to be the forefront of our group as far as our leaders. Last but not least, want to jump into Article 2, Section 2, and list off the powers of the president. So here, the president shall be the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of several states. So again, the president not only has control over the Army and the Navy, but also the militia of several states. And we always like to go back to, of course, in 2020, when tensions were heightened. We saw a lot of what would it be? Unidentified groups, armed groups. A lot of them were militia. And now, after reading, the Constitution, understanding who has control over the militia, we're able to see, okay, so this is why President Trump at this time said, stand down and stand by. He wasn't talking to the Army or the Navy. He was specifically speaking to the militia, which he has every right to, because underneath Section 2, Article 2, it states that, again, the president shall have be the commander of the chief, Army, Navy, and of the militia. So again, just kind of want to understand, this structure, because we have to understand the rules of the game in order to beat the game. So I always want to just, keep that in mind. So I believe we left off, was it Article 11? No,
Yes.
last week. Okay, Article 11.
I'm just going to throw out there that President or former President Trump just held a rally with this past weekend down here in Georgia.
Mhm.
So we're about to come back into that political theater runs again. And this time you just got to pay attention, keep your ears open, What's the agenda for Black folk? What's the agenda for Americans?
Right. Great point. Great point. And actually, I believe we're going to start on Article 12. I think we finished off on Article 11. So we have Article 12 right here, okay? And I'll go ahead and jump off, start off the readings. 12, the maps of said surveys shall exhibit, as far as practicable, the outlines of the actual occupancy of members of the said nations, respectively. And when they are completed, shall be returned to the said land office at Bogey Depot for inspection by all parties interested. When notice for 90 days shall be given of such return in such manner as the legislative authorities of the said nations, respectively, shall prescribe, or in the event of said authorities failing to give such notice in a reasonable time, in such manner as the register of said land office shall prescribe. So here, what I'm getting off this first part is that looks like they're going to be having, again, land surveyors pretty much outline, what will be allotted to each nation. Let me see here. It's still looking like it's actually going through, from what I'm reading, not their own legislative, just kind of, remembering what we had pretty much talked about in Article 11, that this is actually going to be done by the US government and not actually those respective nations' governments, as far as the carving out of land, marking certain territories for each other. Any thoughts on that?
I'm myself there. The word occupancy is standing out to me. So the outlines of the actual occupancy of members completed shall be returned to the said land office at Bogey Depot for inspection by all parties interested. So, that word occupancy just stands out to me. What occupancy and who's overshadowing this occupancy? Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Call out. Anything just stuck out to you there, Chief Alligator?
Yeah, I'm good with everything y'all said. Yeah, they're just under another government's military right now. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. I'll go ahead and continue. Calling upon all parties interested to examine said maps to the end that errors, if any, in the location of such occupancies may be corrected. So again, it's just saying here that those nations, let me see here, that in the event that these mapped out areas are accurate, or actually what was promised to them from, again, the U.S. government, if there are any errors, then they can actually bring those errors. Trying to see who they could bring those errors to. I'm guessing the survey
interested, examine said maps. Calling upon all parties interested. to examine said maps to the end that errors, if any, in the location of such occupancies may be corrected. Yeah, good question, Chief Bucco. Of said, of calling upon all parties interested.
Whoever has an issue, whether it be those nations, any of the surveyors or surveys that were done for those particular lands, if any of them,
Okay, your agents,
any error,
secretary, marshal.
they can come upon, or basically, I guess, get together and make sure that those corrections are ironed out.
Correct.
So Article 13, the notice required in the above article shall be given not only in the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations, but by the publication in newspapers printed in the state of Mississippi and Tennessee, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, and Alabama. Let me see here. The notice required in the above article shall be given not only in the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations, but by the publication in newspapers printed in the states of Mississippi and Tennessee, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, and Alabama. So not only will these new mapped out areas be given to the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations, but they'll also be printed publicly via newspaper to these other states. I guess let them know of the new territory or areas that the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations occupy. To the end.
What you're doing is they're showing how they're surrounding them. Because those are states. So states are under the United States government.
Right.
So these nations are, they're territorial, right? Under Confederacy form of government, under American form of government, they don't have states, they have territory. So they're saying when they give that 90-day notice that they talked about in the previous paragraph, they would also publicize that 90-day notice in the newspaper, but they're letting additional states within their government know about what's going on with these two American nations.
Right.
So you can see how they're going to be kind of like surrounded, double teamed, however you want to look at it.
Because the word is out where they are and where they're located.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Great point. Great point.
Okay.
To the end that such Choctaws and Chickasaws as yet remain outside of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations. Okay. So to the end that such Choctaws and Chickasaws as yet remain outside of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations may be informed and have opportunity to exercise the rights hereby given to resident Choctaws and Chickasaws. So right here, again, Chief Alligator stated they're giving notice to those surrounding states, but also to any Choctaw and Chickasaw tribesmen or nation men who did not move into that area, that they're saying, okay, we publicize it to the surrounding area. So if you want to make sure you're getting access to these rights, quote unquote rights, that we're giving the residents within these, the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations in this area, this is your notice. This is your invitation to come and, take hold of these rights. So again, that highlights two things to me, that not all of the Choctaw and Chickasaws left or moved west of the Mississippi into present day Oklahoma Indian Territory. So that also begs the question, if they never did push all of us west of the Mississippi, because they're clearly highlighting here that, again, at the end, such Choctaws as yet to remain outside, the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation. So they're obviously, highlighting that there are other members of these two nations that aren't within this nation. So they're acknowledging that there. And I thought that was very interesting. Anything from you all regarding that?
Sound like to me they was pretty much telling them get right or get left. They're putting everybody within these Choctaw and Chickasaw nations, and pretty much if you're on the outside of these walls or on the outside of these nations, you're not going to get any type of benefits that comes with being a part of this nation. Yeah. So now you're, like you said, they're putting this information out to Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, people that didn't go on that Trail of Tears or didn't get pushed by military occupation. Hey, this is what it is. So now you kind of stuck in a tough spot. Like, damn, do I just kind of keep hiding out, doing for me, feeding for myself? Or do I join this? Do I join the nation?
Yeah, see, almost
Do I
like
help
fair
them?
game. It's almost like fair game at this point. Like you said, that just kind of struck out to me. Like, okay, last chance for y'all to get over here before it's just like bloody season. It's on site again.
Right.
You know, we find you out. Hey, it is what it is. You catch us slipping,
Right.
same thing. So,
And I wonder how they were tagging them to kind of, I guess, when you're within the territory, when you're within the borders of what's being governed, or yeah, the said territory, you know, tagging meaning pretty much, branding or however. But how did they notice? Like, oh yeah, I'm Chickasaw Nation or I'm Choctaw Nation.
correct,
Like,
correct.
don't kill me.
But you have to have somebody within the nation validated or what? But great point, great question, great question. What's your thoughts on that, Chief Alligator?
Yeah, I just see the Europeans starting to account for the people that they're going to recognize as Choctaw Chickasaw, right? So like y'all said, the ones that tapped out and was on the Trail of Tears, or because remember, we got African slaves, Negroes, European peasants, and it's maybe Mongoloid descent people or American. They're all going to now tag them on paper that's going to be registered into the bogey depot, right? So this is where their paper trail starts to say now they're going to play this game of reclassifying, or based on documentation, the European is saying this is who you are. And to me, that just goes back to not knowing your worth. How can these people come from a foreign land and tell you anything about who you are? Cool. So that's a self-esteem thing as a group, which is why we're doing this and why we'll continue to do it. If you don't know who you are, and you're not going to get on code for anything, then other groups of people can call you whatever they want to call you and handle you any way that that they choose to handle you. But when you know who you are, which is the wealthiest group of people on the wealthiest land on planet Earth, and you start acting accordingly, then you set boundaries and you set standards, and you dictate. You don't negotiate, you dictate. That's all I got on that.
Good point. Good point. I'll continue reading here. Provided that before any such absent Choctaw or Chickasaw shall be permitted to select for him or herself or others as hereinafter provided, he or she shall satisfy the register of the land office of his or her intention, or the intention of the party for whom the selection is to be made, to become bona fide resident in the said nation within 5 years from that time of selection. But that just goes back again to what we were just mentioning. Definitely answer kind of Chief Blackcoat's question in regards to, okay, how are they going to verify that they are of these people? And it kind of goes back to, again, Chief Alligator. You got these mongoloid looking, quote unquote Native Americans, who we've been programmed to identify as Native American, but here it's not giving you any type of vetting process, like legit vetting process, not a member of, said nation has to identify, oh, that looks like Big Bear or Little Bear, something like that. It's basically saying you have to go through a 5-year process to have your residency, basically. You have to go through a 5-year process. You have to go basically see what your intentions are 5 years from the time of selection. So as we read, I think it might be giving more information, but it looks like you at least have to go 5 years before you can actually be classified as said Choctaw or Chickasaw member. And should the said absentee fail to remove, go ahead.
You go where you said to become bona fide resident in the said nation. You can see how they're taking them from territorial, right, or de jure land rights to moving them into resident under a nation. The government on this land is tribes and confederacies. They're crossing them over into nation, which is corporate. I want to bring that up too, because can't be from the land and all of a sudden you're classified as a resident, an occupant. What you know?
You're not
That
you're
makes
not
it
from
kind
this
of
land.
temporary.
Correct. You can be evicted. You see what I'm saying? So great point on that one. And should the said absentee fail to remove into said nation and occupy and commence an improvement on the land selected within the time after said, the said selection shall be canceled, again, removed, evicted, and the land shall thereafter be discharged from all claim on account thereof. So I'm gonna just read this back here to, again, kind of list off that. To become bona fide resident in the said nation within 5 years from the time of selection, and should the said absentee fail to remove into said nation, they occupy and commence an improvement on the land selected within the time after said, the said selection shall be canceled, and the land shall thereafter be discharged from all claim on account thereof. So it not only seems like they have to go through a 5-year process, but they also have to make improvements on that land within those 5 years. What would be classified as improvements?
Right.
You know,
Sounds familiar.
So it seems like, okay, that's not what we classify as improvements. So we appreciate what you did, but you got to go.
Right. Or this is what it needs to be.
This is what it needs to be. But from what we've read, at least within this article, there aren't any specific requirements that need to be met for what is classified as an improvement.
Right.
So you can see kind of a loophole there where they can just have you come and work. They'll build a crop, and then, no, this isn't the improvement we were looking for.
Free labor.
So yeah, you're evicted. Land shall be thereby discharged from all claim on account. So again, just kind of showing again that that snake, that two sides of the tongue, saying one thing but also saying another thing, creating that escape clause for themselves, basically.
Correct.
You can also see on here where it says on that last sentence, and the land shall thereafter be discharged from all claim on account thereof. That goes back to what I said, that the people from this land come from tribes and confederacies.
Right.
The European put them up under a nation. That is a corporate fiction. You can't own anything under a corporate fiction. That's why they use the word discharge.
Yeah.
Back to what Chief Biko said about being evicted, being a resident up under that corporate fiction. You can't evict me from my land, but you can up under there.
Correct.
Right, just like in federal bankruptcy court.
They discharge it.
You can't pay off the debt because you're not using gold and silver.
We'll discharge it.
Discharge it.
From your what?
Money
from
under
your account.
Government.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can see how they're moving the people of the land into Alice in Wonderland in the 1866 Indian Treaty. They're moving the Choctaw Chickasaw Nation. I'm sorry, they're moving the Choctaw Chickasaw tribes under a European nation term, which puts them on La La Land.
And which puts them in control.
Yeah. Great point. Great point. Discharged from all claim on account. So again, showing that straw man, basically, that fictitious character.
Right.
Anybody want to pick up on Article 14? And should I? Is it good? Everybody can see it, or should I zoom in?
No, you're good. I'll pick it up. All right, Article 14. At the expiration of the 90 days after said, the legislative authorities of the said nations, respectively, entrust for the establishment of seats and justice therein, and also as many quarters reaction or quarter sections as the said legislative council may deem proper for the permanent endowment of schools, seminaries, and colleges in said nation, provided such selections shall not embrace or interfere with any improvement in the actual occupation of any member of the particular nation without his consent, and provided the proceeds of sale of the quarter sections selected for seats of justice shall be apprehended for the erection of improvement of public buildings in the country or in the county in which it is located. All right, let me break this down just a little bit myself. In the expiration of 90 days after said, the legislative authorities of the said nations respectfully entrust for the establishment of seats of justice therein, and also as many quarter sections as the said legislative councils may deem proper for the permanent endowment of schools. So, okay, so 90 days for these sanctions to be pretty much put in place in order for them to be considered doable per the United States government from the tribes of Chickasaw and Choctaw. So you got 90 days to pretty much meet the requirements that the United States government is saying this is cool. That's what I'm picking up from this section. From the school seminars, colleges, and said nations. So just them putting them in a timeline to get things together, what we're looking at.
So here, as the council make it proper for the paid permanent income of schools, seminars, and colleges in said nation, provided such selection shall not embrace or interfere with any improvement in the actual occupation of any member without their consent.
Embrace or interfere with any improvement in the actual occupation of any member of the particular nation without his consent.
Right. So basically what's going on is there's 90 days to contest anything that's going to be improved on, whether it be schools, seminaries, and colleges. That's number one. Number two, they're putting the legislative authorities, which is going to be the leadership of these nations, they're putting them in trust. That's why it says the legislative authorities of the said nations respectively in trust for the establishment of seats of justice therein. So they just moved them into a public servant position. They're going to act as trustees over the schools, seminaries, colleges in the said nations.
Yeah, so they're going to be getting the income, a permanent income of schools, seminars, or towards these schools, seminars, and colleges.
So they're going to be responsible for managing the resources.
Right.
Yeah, because
Again,
they're going to be the treasurer. Like working out of a trust is like you don't own it, but you're responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance. So that's what that legislative authority is. By them putting them in trust, they have to manage the schools, seminaries, and colleges in that said nation. They're responsible for that.
Management class. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Did you want to pick up there, Chief Alligator, Article 15?
Okay, we had Article 15. At the expiration of the 90 days, notice aforesaid, the selection, which is to change the tenure of the land in the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations from a holding in common to a holding in severalty, so take place. So we can see again, we can see financial structures going from a trust, now it's going to a holding in common to a holding in severalty. Those are different financial instruments. Whenever Choctaw or Chickasaw shall have the right to 1/4 section of land, whether male or female, adult or minor, and if in actual possession or occupancy of land improved or cultivated by him or her, shall have a prior right to the 1/4 section in which his or her improvement lies. All right, so basically if you work on that land and you do an improvement to it, you got a right to that land. And every infant shall have selected for him or her a 1/4 section of land in such location as the father of such infant, if there be a father living, and if no father living, then the mother or guardian. And should there be neither father, mother, nor guardian, then as the probate judge of the county acting for the best interest of such infant shall select. Now, this is right up my wheelhouse because I've went through their court procedure when it comes to children. So you can clearly see that they took them off of a tribe and confederate form of government because the inheritance came through the woman. The American tradition on this land is inheritance came through the woman. You can see them putting it with the father.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then what do you see? You see the Europeans' form of court system being imposed on these American, now called nations, because they're under the jurisdiction of a corporate fiction. So now they come under what? Probate court. Why is that important even today? Specifically, when I had a custody case and a legitimation case in the state of Georgia, what a lot of us don't know is when you have a child and it's born outside of wedlock, that child is deemed illegitimate, which means fatherless, which means that child cannot inherit from the father. We can see how that started in 1866, right here. And so you still have to go through probate court when you die in 2022. And what will end up happening is if you have a child born outside of wedlock and you don't have a court order from a superior court saying that you legalize your relationship with that child cannot have the right to inherit from you. And that's under their corporate code or their OCGA code 19-7-22. So that sticks out to me because you can already see how they were going to rob these people of their quarter sections. Just strictly through the inheritance. Oh, you don't have a father living, you don't have a mother living, nobody's claimed you so far as a guardian. I'll add one more thing. They added gays now as having the right to marry. And so now what gays are doing, it's particularly with our kids, because we have so many illegitimate kids amongst our group of people. Now, same-sex male Europeans can go legitimize our kids. That's what they're doing, right? They're claiming our kids from the state. I just said a lot right now, but just marinate on that. This game get dirty. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And yeah.
That's a great point. Great point. And like you said, they can claim that inheritance in doing so. So just like this probate court, if there's no father, mother, or guardian, then that probate court can say, okay, well, we'll take what they left until you become of age, or you still won't get it. So great point.
It says acting for the best interest of such infants. So the court, the probate court, can say, you know what, to act on your behalf, we're going to give your quarter section to these peasants that are coming. You see,
not even your best interest,
right?
Nowhere near it. Yeah.
But now they get a piece of the land because they're claiming the child that's fatherless or motherless because that's their quarter section.
And they inherit that child's legacy because that, like you saying,
now it's starting. Okay.
Going back to the same-sex marriage, like you stated, when they legitimize that child, they can also inherit whatever was supposed to be left for that child.
Right.
Business transaction. I'm inheriting a business or a corporation. I'm taking over that.
Right. And that's the biggest issue amongst our people, especially the woman. And in time, you'll see through the Civil Rights Act how they basically used the woman. They tricked her because they made her head of household. But by taking the father out, you cut off inheritance because they recognize inheritance coming through the father. So what you hear in our community is the promotion of child support. You don't hear our radio station saying legitimize the child.
Right.
You see, so it's all about child support. It's not about getting the right to inherit straight for your child. It's all about how much money you get in child support. So yeah, they already know they're playing a long game. That child, when them parents die, ain't gonna inherit nothing. So each generation starts from zero financially. That's how you get immigrants coming over here, and that's how they're able to surpass us and leapfrog us. That's why we're gonna be at zero in 2050. That's why they can say by 2050 we're gonna have zero wealth, because you got a whole generation of
no inheritance.
Yeah, bastard kids.
Damn, you just said it right there. And like you said, it's still going on. We see this happening today. I mean, you just related it to, current times. And like you said, there's no father. So in essence, or not even in essence, the legal right goes to the state. Now the government is acting as that child's father or guardian.
Correct. It goes to the state. And I'm just gonna say this, man, water seeps to its own level. Shout out to y'all getting this kind of information, right? Water seeps to its own level. You got, that's all I can say on that, man. You move different when you know certain things, right? Ignorance of the law, when you up on law and you up on how they play this game, you win.
Right. Right.
I'll
Go.
do
Oh, you gonna do 16? I bet.
Should an actual occupant of land desire at any time prior to the commencement of the surveys aforesaid to abandon his improvement and select and improve other land so as to obtain the prior right of selection thereof, he or she shall be at the liberty to do so, in which event the improvement so abandoned shall be open to selection by other parties. So if you start working on one section of land and then you want to leave that and go relocate to another group of parties can select that land that you just left. Who is that party though?
Mm.
It could be Europeans. Yeah, you don't know who is that party that can just come get your quarter section. Y'all want to say anything on that, or y'all good?
Yeah, we're good on that one. I'm good on that one.
Yeah.
All right, provided that nothing herein contained shall authorize the multiplication of improvements so as to increase the quantity of land beyond what a party would be entitled to at the date of this treaty. Yeah, so you're only going to get your quarter section. You're not going to be able to work on one, keep that quarter section, and then move over here and improve this land and come up on.
Wow.
Yeah. No expansion.
But I'm going back to self-esteem and not knowing your worth. You got foreigners on your land giving you way too many terms and conditions. How you're supposed to be moving.
Right. You can't grow. This is your box that you're within.
Yeah, pretty much.
Only thing you can do.
Build this land up. Let me go cultivate that one. All right, yeah, sure. Go ahead. While we go ahead and occupy this one that you done made beautiful.
Yep. Appreciate
just
it.
Working people to death.
Yeah. Damn.
Man,
all
that's
right.
crazy.
Article 17, I'll go ahead and pick up here. No selection to be made under this treaty shall be permitted to deprive or interfere with the continued occupation by the missionaries established in the respective nations. So we see here missionaries. I think this might have been the first time seeing anything like this within the treaty. So it looks like they're bringing in their religion into these said nations. Again, creating that doctrination. We saw again in earlier articles, they already saying, hey, you got to establish schools and colleges. Now we're bringing in our religion.
Missionaries.
So you can see the brainwashing that's going to be taking place within these nations. Of their several missionary establishments, it being the wish of the parties hereto to promote and foster an influence so largely conducive to civilization and refinement. So again, just brainwashing them into what they consider to be civilized and refined. Should any missionary who has been engaged in missionary labor for 5 consecutive years before the date of this treaty in the said nations, or either of them, or 3 consecutive years prior to the late rebellion, again, there goes that term rebellion again, not a civil war people, and who, if absent from the said nations, may desire to return, wish to select a quarter section of land with a view up to a permanent home for himself and family, he shall have the privilege to do so, provided no selection shall include any public buildings, schools, or seminars.
Hold on, go back up, bro. Go back up. I wanted to say something at the beginning of that article that you read. This is right there.
No selection.
Because you're correct. We never seen the word missionary in a treaty before. What is that first sentence saying? No selection to be made under this treaty, which is supposed to be supreme law of the land, shall be permitted to deprive or interfere with the continued occupation by the missionaries established. They're saying that the religion entities supersede the treaty.
You have to have this here.
Hold on. So now let's fly above the chessboard. Who's on the back row? If these are the pawns, if the soldiers are the pawns,
the missionaries,
soldiers are the pawns, the second row was going to be your government. Who's on that back row for the European?
The king and the queens.
The Pope.
The Pope.
He runs the church.
The religion aspect.
So they're showing you right here. The church supersedes the supreme law of the land.
Yeah, through the paper bull. Understood.
He's the puppet master. So sometimes we get so caught up in operations, who's right in front of us, who's the one that you're dealing with, interacting with. No, sometimes you got to sit back and you got to say, nah, who's financing the whole thing?
Right.
Who's the shot caller?
The church.
And when you start to realize who the shot caller is, then everything else starts to line up. The Pope is the shot caller. The Pope is the shot caller. His missionary supersede. So again, they're contradicting themselves, Chibiko, like you say every time when you read the article about the treaty being the supreme law of the land. They're lying. It's not the supreme law of the land. These goddamn churches supersede the treaty.
They can't deprive or interfere. They can't do anything with these missionaries. And they say under this treaty shall be permitted to deprive or interfere. So no selection. So that's a great point out there. What was here? I also here in this section it state that these missionaries will be able to get them a quarter section of the land with a view to a permanent home for himself and his family. So not only do these missionaries have protection in regards to they can't be, what did it say again? Can't be deprived or interfered with their continued occupation. They also can have pretty much a home and their land allotted to them. So that's quite key. So that has to be in place within this treaty here. And a quantity of land not exceeding 640 acres. Wow. So they get a lot of land as well.
Right. Man, wait a minute. So the Choctaw Chickasaw gets a quarter section, but if you claiming a religion or to be a missionary, you get 640 acres. And if you look up just a little bit, that last sentence of that last paragraph, should any missionary who has been engaged in missionary labor for 5 consecutive years before the date of this treaty in the said nations, or either of them or 3 consecutive years prior to the late rebellion, and who if absent from the said nations may desire to return. So they gave them 3 outs right there. If you've been doing service work in that area for 5 years,
you good.
Or if you was working on it for 3 consecutive years before the Civil Rebellion, or even if you want to claim that you're returning and you a missionary, you can get the land.
That's
It's the damn church.
Damn.
You look at all these black preachers today. Why you want to do this so bad? The guy started benefits.
Yeah. You see how much land they occupy too with a lot of these churches. How they get
right, missionaries having all this land,
blocks of land.
So whatever goes on within his land and his quarters, him being that church leader.
So let me see here. To be selected according to legal subdivisions in one body and to include their improvements is hereby granted to every religious society or denomination which has erected or which, with the consent of the Americans, may hereafter erect buildings within the Choctaw and Chickasaw country for missionary or educational purposes.
Bro, that's crucial right there. That's crucial. They're telling you is hereby granted to every religious society or denomination which has erected or which with the consent. So whether the Americans want, whether the Choctaw or Chickasaw want them to do something or not.
Yeah, it's a erected or which. So they can get your approval or they can't. Either way, we gonna move in this motherfucker.
The missionary is, he just said the Pope over, is a higher respect in the treaty. So once these church leaders come in, they're kind of just falling in with that Pope kind of mentality or leadership or however. And
Ooh, it's a sick game these fuckers play, boy.
Then it's coming through the church, so you think it's a positive thing.
Exactly. It's God. God is telling us to do this.
Right.
You can't supersede God. This is a treaty. They can't supersede God in their eyes. So that's what they try to get themselves to believe in order to do these things. So that's a great point, great highlight there. I'll finish off this here. but no land thus granted, nor the buildings which have been or may be erected thereon shall ever be sold or otherwise disposed of. So they can't be sold nor disposed of except with the consent of the legislatures of said nations respectively and approval of the Secretary of Interior. So they have to get the consent of the nation's legislature and the approval of the Secretary of Interior, which is, we know, upline goes to the United States government. They answer to the United States government. So if the United States government say, hell no, we want them churches in there, then they're going to stay there, regardless of what these nations' legislatures may want and what the Secretary of Interior may want. So just wanted to highlight that. To the support and maintenance of other similar establishments for the benefit of the Choctaws and Chickasaws and such other persons as may hereafter become members of their nations, according to their laws, customs, and usages. Again, that was a lot said in that Article 17 there, and a lot of information, and it just kind of made me even ask a question to the viewer. You know, and it's funny that they mention, missionaries and churches and things of that nature, because when we say, these Americans are supposed to be Native Americans, that we have been, programmed to envision, when we say that we're the Americans, why do we get such vitriol and such backlash? Like, hell no, y'all not no Americans, bro. We know what they look like. You only know what they look like because you've been programmed with the image. So I'm gonna ask the question, just want to play a game for the viewers. I want you all to close your eyes and, just picture Jesus. Just close your eyes, picture Jesus. Now, when you open your eyes, I guarantee you about 99% of the viewer pictured a white man with thorns on his damn head.
Mm-hmm.
And you only pictured that image because it was programmed to you via what? Books, TV programming, literature, even though they'll describe them as some totally different person.
Different.
But you see a white man. So again, we can see the indoctrination being taking place here in this Article 17 of this. They're saying, you can't remove this. This has to happen. This won't be voted upon. This is a non-negotiable.
Right.
So when we say that we weren't the slaves, the European was, the peasant European at that, you like, oh no, man, we was in slavery, man. We had whips on our back. Harriet Tubman freed about 10,000 of us. We get all these, these images that be thrown on us. We get Roots every goddamn Black History Month. We get a new, slave movie with our people depicted every year. It's like, okay, but when somebody comes up with something different, you look at it like it's blasphemy. So again, I'll ask this question. You will close your eyes and picture a slave. When you open them, I guarantee you probably picture that man with all them lashes on his back that they have in all the damn books, the McGraw-Hill,
all the movies,
the Scholastic books, every damn thing. You're gonna picture that man, but you can't picture what we say or what we've proven to be true. The European was the slave.
Let me build on that what you just said. Not only does it start with that Jesus character that you said, because in their Bible called the book, in that book called the Bible, they say he had feet of brass and hair of wool. Mm-hmm. So that's a prime example that if you don't read and study to show yourself approved and you only go by images, they contradict themselves. The book says he has brown skin and hair like wool, but they give you an image of a white looking hippie from the 70s.
Straight hair.
To add on top of that, why when we say that we're the lost Confederacy, you'll look at us crazy because during segregation, when you couldn't go on their side of town, they constructed fake images of Confederate generals and soldiers. So when you integrated with these people, you're walking around in Willy Wonka factory thinking, oh, these are the Confederates, when really the Confederates are the Americans, which is us. Same concept like your Jesus and same concept like that slave image. You're going off what TV shows you because your dumb ass won't read.
Straight like that. What you got to say that Chief Black Coat?
I think Chief Alligator said it. The lack of knowing. You said it too, Chief Biko, that Jesus complex. Who is your God? This damn show ain't no white man or European. So it's kind of like just knowing, actually just, I think Chief Alligator said it probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes into our show today. Knowing who you are, knowing where you come from. And then once you know who you are and where you come from, you kind of stand on it. And that's all we doing is standing on what we know. We're just lost and confused as a people because we don't know who we are. So they could tell us who we are, evict us, like you said, Chief Biko, get out of here. And it's like, damn, what? Your birthright is to the land. So it's like, not knowing who we are, this government will flourish forever. Just keep flourishing. But then when we come back to the realization, like how Chief Alligator said, the richest people in the richest land on the planet.
Knowing your worth.
Knowing your worth. That's what it was. So yeah, we gotta scrub the brain, man. We gotta really understand what's going on here. The propaganda, the brainwashing, the programming. Knowing who's on that back row.
Facts.
I'll do 18. I'll do Article 18.
Okay.
In making a selection for children, the parent shall have prior right to select land adjacent to his own improvements or selection, provided such selection shall be made within 30 days from the time at which selections under this treaty commence. Okay, so come on, you don't own the land. You got 30 days. They're saying after 30 days, you can't make a selection for your kids. It's not your land. It's not your land. You basically you're being deboed. Article 19, the manner of selecting. Did anybody want to share on Article 18?
Nah, it's pretty cut and dry.
Okay. Article 19, the manner of selecting, as aforesaid, shall be an entry with the register of the land office, and all selections shall be made to conform to the legal subdivisions of the said lands as shown by the surveys aforesaid on the maps aforesaid. That's a very fancy way of saying two different jurisdictions. The treaty is law, but they're telling these people that when you register, when you select for your kid what land they want, you have to register that land to conform to legal subdivisions. Legal is not lawful. Right? So they're putting these Americans under a corporate nation called Choctaw Chickasaw, and then they're putting the land that they're going to give their kids and the lands that they're getting under legal subdivisions, not lawful.
Because they wouldn't be no law for that.
Remember we said before, legal is the police. The law would be the sheriff. So they're putting these Americans in a legal structure, not the lawful structure.
Not a position of power.
Yeah. What I just got from that is basically the HOA, Homeowners Association. Your shit got to be just like this. Anything outside of that is illegal. Again, we set our statutes, our rules, our regulations. That's not law, but that's legal underneath our own miniature miniature division underneath the whole. So that's what that sounds like.
And shout out to the people like the Dave Ramseys and the Robert Kiyosakis of the world, because what they're showing you, understanding who they come from, they're showing you don't have debt. That's the only way that them people can't dictate to you. And again, our people, that's foreign to our people because most of us have a negative net worth. Most of us walk around only having higher liabilities than we do assets, but we think we got it going on and we think we dictating stuff. No, you gotta live it. You have to actually be it. And this is a prime example. These people are poor. They're spirit poor because you're letting another group of people put you under all these different they got you under the law with the treaty, then they got you under legal subdivisions. They got you dangling in two different jurisdictions. So that's another thing I'm taking from this. Don't contract with them, and then you ain't got to worry about it. Claim the land. Damn, they structure.
Yeah.
All right.
It being understood that nothing herein contained is to be construed to confine a party selecting to one section, but he may take contiguous parts of sections by legal subdivisions in different sections, not exceeding together a quarter section. All right, so yeah, you can get some different sections, but who supersedes whatever you decide to choose? The missionaries.
Yeah.
So they're really telling you can get something that you really can't get.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know the missionaries can just say, oh yeah, we had that before the Civil Rebellion 3 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we did land improvements on that for 5 consecutive years and take it from them.
Right.
Yeah.
We might be able to squeeze one more in. We got about 9 more minutes for the alarm go off.
All right.
Where we at?
20.
Okay, 20. Prior to any entries being made under the foregoing provisions, proof of improvements or actual cultivation, as well as the number of persons for whom a parent or guardian or probate judge of the county proposes to select, and of their right to select, and of his or her authority to select for them, shall be made to the register and receiver of the land office. So everything is going through this bogey depot, which is the land office. That's where they're going to hold all the records for all of these, what they're calling residents of these said nations. So what we're seeing is Chief Blackcoat said, how they're accounting for them through land records, because they're making them register them.
Yeah.
Everything has to go through that land office.
Right.
Yeah. Register your stuff. Yeah.
Under regulations to be prescribed by the Secretary of the Interior. And we already know that the Secretary of Interior, that comes from up under the United States government.
Right.
So they're embedded within these 2 fictitious nations that were created. And so, yeah, you just infiltrated at this point. I'll do Article 21. In every township, the sections of land numbered 16th and 36 shall be reserved for the support of schools in said township, provided that if the same has already been occupied by a party or parties having the right to select it, or it shall be so sterile as to be unavailable, the legislative authorities of the particular nation shall have the right to select such other unoccupied sections as they think proper. So again, you're not—
You got to get up out of there.
Yeah, they telling you that they're giving you this, but then they telling you, oops, the 16th and 36th section, that's reserved for school.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
So we can see where they're going to start changing the language of the people on the land, right? Now that they got you roped out, yeah, now we're going to put these schools in here. We're going to start teaching you English. We're going to start reconstructing the literature that your kids are going to read, right? And that programming 100 years, 160 years later, you know, we can see how these military brainwashing camps called school has just got us completely off the rails.
Yeah. It just highlights to me why we don't read treaties. Because it'd be unveiling the bullshit. It'd be unveiling the bullshit. I get why the U.S. government, have this in their their agenda for certain schools and things like that. But again, our highly educated people are supposed to be schooled, but yeah, they're highly schooled in school in the U.S. Doctrine, but not in regards to treaties, because it will obviously show what we've been saying, which is run a military occupation. And now they threw another wrench in it, which is the power of the church. So we can see how, our people are, or, these highly schooled people are so conflicted spiritually. One hand, they want to be from the African diaspora, and on the other hand, they want to be claiming Christianity, when both are being used to put our people in a mental chokehold of not, paying attention to what the fuck's going on this land. So it's just, I'm glad we're doing what we're doing.
That was a great point.
Mm-hmm. But did you want to stop there? And we'll pick up on Article 22 next week.
see. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, I think that was the most powerful thing as well. I'm in alignment with you, Chief Biko. The fact that we now know in this article that the religious entities supersede the treaties. We've never
Right.
seen the language. So I think, yeah, well worth the read today. That's priceless. Anything you want to close out with, Chief Blackcoat?
No, Chief Biko said a lot today or tonight. You're seeing our people battle with European structures, still not who you are. You got to do your homework. We come from wars and blood, sweat, and tears. So that going back to what Chief Biko saying, why we don't read these treaties, why we don't read these documents, because they just take away your African mentality or your Christianity mentality. Because today we just found out the Pope, he called the shots. You still a Christian? So I'll leave it there.
Classic. I caught it right on time. I knew he was going to drop the ball. I knew he was going give me a hot 16.
Right.
Facts.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's crucial. I got to definitely put that in the title. Whatever article that was we read, 1866 article what, section, proof that the Pope supersedes the treaties. Yeah, bro. I think that's probably one of the most powerful things that we've ever read thus far, bro. And how many people have actually went section for section that actually know that, y'all? Again, I got to salute y'all because it's not over. Like Chief Blackcoat said about Trump being in Georgia, getting ready to crank it back up again. And so,
Not over.
Mhm.
We still live on YouTube.
You tie it all in, the pandemic, not getting nothing from the government in the middle of a pandemic. They already have planned or forecasted that we're going to be the group that's going to have zero wealth in another 20 years.
2053.
What did he say? 20 what?
I think 2053.
Yeah. So when you add all of that up, that's the plan. The plan is to basically annihilate these people. So I apologize. I feel sorry for everybody that went to sleep once Trump got out of office and let Biden slide them first 100 days because they're getting ready to crank it back up with Trump.
Yeah, we is.
And it's prime for Afghanistan, Ukrainians, all them people over here. So Trump finna crank this shit back up, man. But guess what? I don't care. We gonna stay down and stay focused. It's boring coming up. And what we're doing is we're staying consistent, and we're gonna be prepared, man, because we're going to be continually targeted, man, because we're the poorest and most unorganized group of people, and we think we're going to be able to party and hide our way out of this, and we're not. I'm just glad that I met y'all guys, man, and that
definitely ain't gonna party our way out of it.
Sure.
Definitely ain't partying our way out of it.
Yeah.
All right, so who's gonna do what? You got the password to the Gmail. So
We still live too, I think, Chief.
Yeah, are we gonna kill the live real quick?
I thought I stopped it.
Nah, you started recording.